para muchos jóvenes que habitan en los Estados Unidos o en México, particularmente a la frontera de los Estados Unidos americanos y mexicana, es no esperanza para la futura. Esta es la historia de la política de la nación. Home is somewhere else. La casa es extranjera. O traducción que español. Sorry if my Spanish isn't that great. I speak better French and English, but I think this is an important film that had to be made. I saw it as part of Annecy 2022. It was a documentary, very similar to like Flea or Waltz of Bashir, or a Latvian film, My Favorite War, which is essentially the story of three Mexican children's experience growing up in the United States without papers and documentation. It's a very controversial subject in of its own right. No, it's certainly got a lot of hoopla as a result of the Donald Trump election 2016 and 2012. I'm sorry, 2012, when Obama was getting re-elected and they accused him of just saying amnesty, 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 and the Dreamers, that came into the spotlight there in many cases that they had to deal with and the fears of deportation. This is a very political film nonetheless, and I'm glad that it was made because I actually knew something. In a particular job that I won't describe, at least in my time in the United States, Estados Unidos, there was someone who knew someone who was deported. Immigration and Customs Enforcement eventually found out where his whereabouts were. And they found him at the least time you would expect it, and they sent him where he was, never to be seen again by his family. Sorry. And it really shook up the family for a long time. She was crying throughout. And I overheard it, and I saw what was going on, and even asked a few questions to see what was occurring. And it's certainly not an easy thing to deal with. Immigration issues and discussions can be very controversial in of its own right, because right now it's fashionable to say you want to toughen up borders and close the loophole and stop these illegals from coming in. But the reality is some people are trying to escape a very bad situation from where they grew up in. Poverty and crime and the fear of violence often leads people to escape their surroundings for a better life elsewhere, whether they have papers or not. And I'm sure it even affects people who got proper documentation and can stay for a set period of time, or just received citizenship because they've been here for more than 5 years. In many ways, this is Mexico's answer to Fluch, the Danish anime documentary that was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. Although this ends not so positively for everyone here, but as we see toward the end, they look to the future ahead, even in times of crisis, even when the system says, you can't do it, we won't let you. My favourite segment in that particular work was the host himself, as he's introducing the stories of when you don't have sin papeles, when you cross la frontera, and then when you're thinking, hostilamente, orale. He's doing the sort of thing that Lin-Manuel Miranda did with Hamilton and In the Heights, but much more interesting and much more compelling. Those were fantasies, more or less, or revisionist works. This is a film that really needs to be shown in schools. Sure, there's a bit of bad language. Sure, there's subject matter that could be very offensive to people with far-right leanings, or just anyone who's Republican or GOP in general. But it needs to be said, nonetheless, to provoke the discussion that some people just don't have options. I'm sure if you were bombed right now, like the Ukrainians are, and yes, Syrians and Palestinians, Yemenis, or living under censorship and prosecution like you are in China and Myanmar, you probably would leave yourself too, whether you have papers or not, whether you have money or not, or a university degree or not. You would find a way. You even call your mate living in Australia or the US or Britain. You think, get me out of here. I'm sure you're probably thinking that too. in a developed country like the US or Britain, which had its own problems. Maybe people wanted to say, oh, I'm fleeing to Canada because Trump got elected. Or I'm fleeing for Ireland because of Brexit. You get the idea? So put it in your own shoes. Maybe you'll like it a little bit more. My favourite segment was number 3. Sorry to get off tangent. As a young man who grew up in Salt Lake tells his story, I had to even witness a pedophile inside a jail and had to alternate between the prison watching Spanish language and English language television inside a detention center by the Immigration Customs of the United States. And his eventual deportation is he's sent back to Mexico, and finds a new life as a slam poet. So amidst all the challenges, one can find hope. It was a similar story I even heard from someone who was deported back to El Salvador because he committed a crime when he was in Los Angeles. Yeah, it's tragic. But I think, that's the great thing about animation. It allows you to talk about issues that you're not supposed to talk about that can get you into trouble with the far right and with parents who think that all cartoons are like Encanto or Frozen, suitable for the whole family. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. They can speak about issues and not use metaphors while doing it. I'm looking at you, Zootopia. And I said it, my piece. Thank you. Muchas gracias para la película que hace una crítica del película. Está muy interesante por ver grande oportunidad. Nunca menos.